The season of celebrating is approaching, and for many businesses, it's also their season of selling. Think Black Friday, Cyber Monday, end of year sales. So, how do you create customers without being salesy? Welcome to episode 7 of Content Catalyst. I'm your host, Deb Szabo, and in today's episode, I want to share with you 5 ways to sell without being salesy. Now, you might be listening to this and think, but Deb, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a lawyer. I'm a business coach. I'm a winemaker, whatever, fill in the blanks. However, I'm sorry to say, if you're in business, you're in sales. But yet, many of us struggle with this label. So, how can you generate revenue and make people want to buy from you? Well, without being salesy. Um, Firstly, let's look at why people buy. What motivates people to buy? And the first thing is solving a problem. I know that sounds really obvious, but the primary reason why people buy something is because they want to solve a problem. It could be just a simple practical issue like their dryer is broken and it's the middle of winter and they need to dry the kids' clothes for school the next day. So it is very practical to go out and replace the dryer. The other reason that people buy is because they're just meeting the basic needs or wants. So if you think about things like food, clothing, shelter, the other reason that people buy is emotional satisfaction. So a lot of the time when we do buy, it is based on emotion, and we associate positive emotions with certain purchases because it can bring us excitement, it can bring us happiness. I think of like if I go and get a massage or a pedicure, it's like a sense of reward and that feeling of endorphin afterwards to go, oh, look how pretty my toes are. So the other reason people buy is status and or identity. So if you think about why people buy certain cars, it's they want to align themselves with a certain lifestyle or a group to signal success. Social influence also comes into this. So people will buy based on what those around them are doing. So, for example, your friends and family all have a certain product, therefore, that you have to go out and buy one as well. And this is why things like group selling parties are very powerful, because often people will see one person buying some doTERRA oils and then everyone else has to buy them as well. So there's a sense of missing out if and not fitting in if they're not buying something as well. And I often see this when people come to wineries. If their whole group is buying, then there's a sense of, oh, I must buy something as well. Perceived value. This is a really interesting one because when something is on sale, this is where people often will react to. They see something has a higher value versus the cost. So I think about, I went to Kmart recently and they had some black gum boots there. And right in the middle of the center of the store, they'll often have a rack of clearance items. And, they'll have things for like $2. And you think, for $2, I'd be mad not to buy something. And like I said, I saw some black gum boots there recently and I'm like, surely I should buy these gum boots. They're going to come in handy at some stage in my life, and they're only $2. I didn't buy them because I was, conscious of going, I don't need it. The other reason people buy is convenience. So think about last time you went and round the corner and bought some takeaway food that cost you, $50 when you know that you could duck down the supermarket and spend $10 and make the same curry, for example. So people essentially are willing to pay for products or services if they think it's going to make their life easier or save them time. Trust and credibility is the other reason why people buy. And if you think about when you've purchased something without too much thought on, or not even too much thought, too much shopping around, because they bought something because they were recommended it. I think about when I buy my mobile phone, when I upgrade my mobile phone, I buy an iPhone because I just trust that I know how to use it. I know that the features are what I want in a phone. And I know there are plenty of other great cameras in phones with other brands, but I have this trust with the phone that I like using in the iPhone. The other reason why people buy is FOMO. FOMO is the fear of missing out on a good deal, a popular trend, or something that's limited release or scarce. That can drive people to make impulse purchase decisions. The last reason that I want to talk about today, why people do make motivated to make decisions when and to buy, is personalization. So when things are customized or personalized, say with their name on it, then that is a great motivator for people to buy. If you think about Coke did a campaign on putting names on the bottles, that was a huge campaign from them. I always think about the newsagents that have that center, the stand with all the books, Christmas books on it, and they're personalized named books. And I know I've bought them as gifts just because they had their name on it for the kids. So there's some reasons why people are motivated to buy, but put simply, people make decisions based on logic and emotion. So when there's logic involved, it's their rational thought process. Often there can be no urgency. However, emotions on the other end of the scale can actually drive impulse. And if it is an extreme impulse, they can sometimes regret it later. Essentially, people will buy what they're emotionally connected to. Sales is something that I have probably been doing. Well, I've been marketing for 3 decades now, and I've been selling for way longer than that. I mean, my first job in sales was selling gift cards at Flemington Markets when I was 12. I used to sell skateboards and surfwear when I was 14 and fashion retail at 15. So I've been selling for a long, long time. By about 21, I started working in radio and doing advertising campaigns. And that's where I really learnt the essence of relationship building and solution selling. The radio stations that I work for, the radio networks that I work for, invested a lot into creating programs on solution selling. And at that stage when I'd entered it, because I was the young gun, there was a lot of older, stereotypical sales people, I guess, working in that industry at the time. And they would literally go out and, wave a schedule of ads in front of, clients and that's how they sold. They were just selling the radio schedule. They weren't selling what the transformation was and how they could actually help their business grow. And at that stage, for me, I actually did a training course with an old body language expert, and his name was Alan Pease. I don't know whether anyone knows, and if you do, I'd love you to send me a DM on Instagram if you've ever heard of him. Anyway, he came to town and we were working radio at the time, and we sponsored his training session. It was one of the most powerful things that I've ever done in my training, and I still use it today. And it just talked about how we can adapt our conversations to different styles of learning, and how we can prejudge people as well. But more importantly, it really came down to how we can provide solutions to people. So here's how I then transformed, I guess, a lot of the clients that never bought into one of the biggest spenders in the radio station I was working with and many radio stations afterwards, was because I was going out there building relationships with people, but instead of actually just presenting a sales, radio ad schedule, I would actually create holistic solutions, because I would ask questions and just delve more into their business. I was generally interested in how I could help them. And again, that probably comes back to my curiosity of why people bought, but also my marketing hat started back then as well. So I want to share with you now 5 ways on what I've learned on how to sell without being salesy, because I know it's a big turnoff. It's a big turnoff for me when I go into a place somewhere and I get dished out the spiel. I'm like, really? Like, you're just selling it so you can either reach an incentive or tick the box, or you're not interested in me. And I see this, in retail. I see this in wine tourism, which I've worked in for many years. You can go into a cellar door and people are literally dishing out the spiel to you of going, this is a Semillon. It tastes like citrus and goes well with seafood. And firstly, the thing is, instead of asking me, do I know anything about wine? Because if you do, you know that I already know about Semillon. So now you're preaching to the converted. 2, do I even like Semillon? 3, do I even like seafood? So it's if you're just dishing out that spiel, you're going to uncover that, do I perhaps I have an allergy to seafood. Perhaps, citrus flavored wines are not my preference. White wines, I like a light, medium bodied red instead. So if you ask questions, you uncover things, which brings me to number 1. So here's my top 5 ways on selling without being salesy. And the number 1 is to build a relationship. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but somebody's walked into my shop and I've only got 5 minutes how do I build a relationship with somebody in 5 minutes? Well, I think it comes down to people always buy from people. And if you are dishing out the spiel, people are going to catch on to that straight away. So how can you transform your sales spiel into interest into the person? And sometimes it is about complimenting somebody on when they've walked in. Oh, gee, that's a nice scarf you're wearing. Or it could be a simple thing as just striking up conversation of something that you've noticed about somebody. And a great way to do that is, what are the color of people's eyes? What is their name? I always introduce myself. It's like, hi, I'm Deb. And then people will often reply to, hi, I'm, Peter. And then all of a sudden that's a barrier that's been broken down in building a relationship. People can spend months, even years, observing you before they buy. So, be patient, lay the groundwork, and have a conversation, build relationships, ask questions in that time, because then people will think that you are genuinely interested in them when you actually start to take an interest in them. One of the things that I love to do is, by building a relationship, is, when you ask questions, I love to find out one obscure thing about a person. It's like this, thing of, and I always seem, when I have conversations, when I have an opportunity to be in the sales environment, is to have conversations where I find out one obscure thing, and I always inevitably do. People reveal the most incredible things to me because of it. So if you don't have a physical store, how do you build relationships online? Well, again, it is about having conversations. And that's why video is so, so, so powerful in building relationships, because just by putting up a static, Canva tile telling people what you do is being salesy. Where having a video up explaining things and showing things and demonstrating things, more importantly, the most powerful way that I find video being used to build relationships is in stories, in something like Instagram. So just by sharing a story a day and having conversations, like looking at the camera instead of saying, hey guys, to everybody, speak to one person. Have a conversation with one person on the other end of the lens. Educate. So number 2 is educate. So by positioning yourself as the go-to person and adding value to people, you essentially become the go-to expert or authority in your industry, or for the product that you sell or service that you provide. And you do this through content marketing. So content marketing is where you're adding value to people and giving valuable information away. And by giving all this valuable information away, you're essentially educating people. And then when it comes to selling something, you'll often find that people will just come to you, because rather than you having to ask. And that's the power of content marketing. The other thing that, number 3, way to sell without being salesy, is to ask and listen. And I know, again, these are really obvious things, but when I think about working in cellar doors for many years, is often people forget to ask. They just rattle off the spiel. You walk into a retail shop, they'll rattle off the spiel. And yes, you want to tell people about your product. We're excited to tell people about our product or service, but it's important to ask questions and listen. And asking questions is a practice that you can master, because when you ask questions, you don't want the person to feel like they're interrogated. So it's a fine line between asking questions, getting feedback, as opposed to that person going, so what are you doing? Where are you staying? Where are you going? How are you doing it? So you want to have that give and take, ask and listen. The other thing is listen more than you speak. So when you're asking, like, really listen to the person, really take it in. Because often when we're selling something, we're like, I've got to tell the person about this, I've got to tell the person about that. And we forget to actually listen and take it in. And that's, again, a little bit of mindfulness there as well. So I'm such a talker. So I have to remind myself to listen and be present as people are taking the time to tell me what they're here to share. So that's if you're in person. How do you do that if you're online and you've got an online business? Well, again, using social media. Social media is all about being social. So use polls, use questions, ask questions, surveys, get feedback from people, use feedback forms. It is a really, really powerful way to ask and listen to your audience. Number 4 is storytelling. I love storytelling. That's probably why I love video so much, is because it's really all about storytelling. And it helps people visualize how they can use your product and how it solves their problem. I think this is why testimonials are so powerful as well. So when you're storytelling, you're visualizing in people's minds how that product or service is being used and how that product or service has solved other people's problems or your problem or situation. So storytelling is a really, really powerful way to help you sell without selling. And as I mentioned, testimonials. Get your people to your customers, your previous customers, to help tell the story of what you do and how you do it. Case studies are another really powerful way to, and again, if I'm thinking about online e-commerce businesses, is that if you can use case studies where, this business had this problem and this is how you solved it using this solution. And bringing me to number 5 of how to sell without being salesy is to explain. So tell rather than sell. People want to feel heard. They want to feel that you're presenting a solution tailored to them and their needs. They don't want to feel like you're just there to sell everybody the same TV in the store. Many people will often sell the features, but not the benefits. So I want you to think about something when you are going to do a sales page for your website or do staff training, is what are the benefits? How does this product or service transform that person? How do you explain in the way, if you do have an online business, for example? I think behind the scenes footage is so, so powerful for this. So again, using stories in Instagram, otherwise, using video in your social media is a really, really powerful way to explain what you're doing. And I'll often do this when I'm, sitting at my desk working on a project, and I'll go, I've just been working on my planning, and here's my planning calendar, and I'm laying out all my campaigns and events for next year. This is my planner. This is how I do it. And explaining that helps people go, actually, I need that too. How can I get a copy of that? And so that's a really powerful way if you can explain and tell people what you're doing, as opposed to like going, hey, buy this. But my bonus tip to how to sell without being salesy is also make it super easy for people to buy from you. And again, I know this sounds really, really obvious, but making it easy for people to buy from you is one of the most powerful ways that you can help people buy from you. And that is having simple calls to action. Do you have, the price? Do you have the product? Do you have a really big call to action button on your email, on your website, in store? Have you got the price displayed so people can just walk up? Is somebody at the till? Again, I know this sounds really basic, but it's so important to remove any roadblocks, any barriers from people wanting to actually proceed and make a process to make the purchase. Because getting to that point, especially if it's an emotional purchase where they're like, yes, they're in the moment, you want to be able to take the sale and get the sale across. Because for every minute, for every hour, for every day that goes by that you're not following up with that person, you've heard of, warm leads, hot leads to warm leads to cold leads. Well, the same thing happens when somebody's really in that mode of buying, then that's the time that you want to act. If you've got a physical business, take interest in people, ask questions not related to your customer, rather than just dishing out the spiel. If you're online business, start talking to people on social media, start explaining what you do, show behind the scenes, use video to communicate with your customers. Content marketing, again, use content marketing to add value to people, give them lots and lots of information so they essentially come to you to buy without you even having to ask for the sale. Or when you are ready to ask for a sale, it's such an easy transition to actually go, yes, I'm going to buy, to press the buy now button. There are my final 5 ways on how to sell without selling. I guess to leave you with the final thought, Zig Ziglar said, if people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. So having a strategy and a plan really helps you focus on how you can serve your clients that will essentially drive sales without having to hard sell. No one likes to be hard sold to. I don't. If you'd like some support with your strategy or help planning out your campaigns or your content marketing for next year, I'm actually offering one-to-one sessions at the moment to give you clarity and direction. So you can actually book a 30-minute session on my website, which is debszabo.com/plan. All the details, of course, in the show notes. Thank you for listening today. If something that you've heard today has helped you, it would mean the world to me if you could go on and leave me a review from wherever you're listening to and tag me on Instagram, which is debszabo_video. Also, if someone you know might benefit from the information in this episode, I really thank you for sharing. Honestly, it means the world to me. Until next episode, have a wonderful day and sell away.